All right, we're going to go ahead and get started today. Thank you so much for attending this weekly training with AFM. AFM volunteers are happy to provide this training to you. You are encouraged to share what you learn in this training with your colleagues. This training is provided free of charge and does not include a certificate of attendance at this time. The training will be recorded, and when possible, recordings will be available at AFM's YouTube channel for future viewing. Since this is a 1-hour training, we will start with training and we'll invite you to introduce yourselves using the chat feature in Zoom. At the end of the training, Brad will be doing a tea time, and you are invited to stay to network and ask further questions about the training topic or to discuss other pertinent topics to the fire service. Please make sure you mute your microphones, and if you have any questions, you may unmute yourself to ask. Brad is going to be doing our words of encouragement today. Jose is out for the day, but should be joining us next week. Brad, thank you.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for attending. Sorry, I'm not as good as Jose, but I will give it a chance and do what I can for words of encouragement. I am so blessed to be here today. I thank you all so much for taking your time out this afternoon to come in and listen to my presentation. It's always encouraging to see that you all are here and want to learn, and I guess just want to try to improve the fire service in your country. Especially, I don't know, some of you I know were here last week and listened to my presentation, and this is kind of a continuance for what we did last week. There is a lot to the subject that we're teaching, and I'm happy to see that you're interested in continuing to learn. And I just hope that you'll continue to try to learn. We're trying to put into 2 hours what here in the U.S. they have a center where you can go and learn in a whole week. So again, thank you so much, and I'm glad that you're trying to learn, and I ask that you continue to hop on here every week and try to learn as much as you can. So if you would like, we can go ahead and open with a prayer, and then we'll get started. So everybody bow your head. Heavenly Father, we're just so blessed to have all of these firefighters on here. We would pray that you would protect them in their work. We thank you that they are willing to get on here and learn, and we ask that you would bless them with the words that we are going to speak today. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right. Let's go ahead. I will throw my screen up here. So this is going to be a case study, an incident that I made with my fire department here at home back in May. So, back in May, on May the 15th, we responded to a truck pulling a trailer. The tank trailer had approximately 32,000 liters of fuel ethanol, ethanol that's blended with gasoline, and it collided with a sport utility vehicle. It was in an intersection. Approximately 11 a.m. in the morning, intersection of a dirt road and a 4-lane divided highway. The SUV was on the dirt road. It pulled out from the dirt road into the 4-lane divided highway. We later determined that the lady driving the sport utility vehicle was trying to, in fact, take her own life by jumping out in front of the trailer, or the truck and trailer. So that's unfortunate. When she did this, the truck driver, being very alert, he attempted to swerve to avoid the collision, but when he did so, his truck struck the front end of that sport utility vehicle. His truck went into a skid, and when it went into that skid, it went over sideways and landed in the median. The 4-lane road was a divided highway, and it landed in the dirt median on its side. The tank was damaged. The top of it, whoops, back up here. But the tank was damaged. It spilled approximately 12,000 liters of ethanol. The weather at the time, it was rainy, and that's one reason why the truck went into that skid. And it was approximately 16 degrees Celsius at the time of the incident, which at that point in time was a plus, because it wasn't quite to the point where it was giving off very much vapor. So these are some of the initial responding units. We had units from Engine 31, and then B32 is one of their chiefs from the fire district. The Wichita Fire Department responded with their Engine 21. Rescue 2 is a hazmat truck. Their Battalion Chief 3, who was the initial incident commander. And then 186, he is their special operations chief. He is in charge of hazardous materials or dangerous goods incidents and rescue incidents. Then from Sedgwick County EMS, they responded Medic 26, their ambulance. So that was the initial response on the incident. And that's what we had when we showed up at the incident. Behind me, when I took the picture, behind me is where the sport utility vehicle was at. Down in the ditch. Okay, the initial actions that we took. Go into that. Okay, so there was one injury reported in the sport utility vehicle. That was the lady that was driving the sport utility vehicle. It was safe to go in there and treat her because it was far enough away from the truck and the trailer. So one of the fire units, that would have been the Engine 33 crew, went in and began treatment, and along with Medic 26, the ambulance, they treated her and she was transported. It was very fortunate. She only had minor injuries. The highway was secured to all traffic. That was done by sheriff and highway patrol units that responded to the scene. Okay. Hazmat group, or there again, for those of you in Kenya, that would be dangerous goods group was established. We were assigned, my crew, we were assigned to that group. We did some diking, which, if you remember when we talked about that last week, that was basically moving dirt by shovel in the low spots because we had a leak from the trailer. It was running down the ditch. There were some drains in the ditch that we were trying to keep it from the product from getting to, and running further away from the incident. So we did some diking with shovels along with one of the other crews. Okay. So that was part of the responsibility of the dangerous goods group. The hot zone was established, which a hot zone, basically that's the area where the incident has occurred, where the material was spilled at. That's where you have to wear personal protective equipment to enter. That was established. The units from the response teams, they had some monitoring equipment that they placed to monitor any vapors that were creeping from that incident, and anybody that was within, I believe it was 30 meters of that hot zone had to have personal protective equipment to enter. Okay, the people from the response team also put a patch on the lower part of that leak to keep it from leaking any more material. So that was what the dangerous goods group initially did. Okay, just an additional note. We looked at a weather forecast. It was forecast to get up to 22 degrees Celsius, which is over the flash point. That's important information to have because that was going to dictate what we were going to do for our incident action plan, because that creates vapors, which we have to address. So that's why that was important to look at that weather forecast. Okay, there's a close up of that tear in the trailer, and right down here, circling that right there, that's where those guys put that patch at, and it actually stopped some of the product from running down the hill. That product was running, and it was running down through the ditch to a drain, which ran under the highway to the outer ditch and was running down. We stopped some of it from running, but there was already some that had gotten away and was running down to that other ditch. Okay. So this was final. Oh, going back to the other crews that responded. Let me kind of say something. That's a lot of people, and this is a lot of people that we have here. So we talked about last week, using the resources that you had on the scene. What if you showed up and you were the only crew that responded? I told you last week when we talked about using the resources that we had, okay? You do what you can do with the resources that you have. You know, I also talked about making your incident action plan and getting the resources that you may be able to get. If you're the only resources that you have and that you can get, make that incident action plan. Make that incident action plan accordingly. Okay. So would diking and securing the scene be adequate to handle this incident? If that's the only thing that you can do, absolutely. Okay. So just because there's all kinds of response vehicles that showed up to this incident, that's what we have to be able to respond here. Okay. Don't let that make you feel bad and think, well, these guys have all kinds of stuff, so they can do more. Okay. That's what we have to deal with it. Use the resources that you have available. Okay, and we're going to do some scenarios where I'm going to make you guys use what you have available and plan accordingly here in just a second. Okay, so this is what we ended up with. Now I called it our final resource list. So this is what we ended up with on the scene. We ended up releasing some resources, but we also added some in. Okay. For us, for my fire department, 550, he's our fire chief. He got there and he ended up assuming command of the scene. Okay. We remained there with our squad. They broke me loose off the squad, and I ended up becoming the incident safety officer. Our engine got there, and what we call our tender, which a tender in the U.S. is different than a tender in Kenya. In the U.S., a tender is something that its sole responsibility is to haul water. Okay, that became important for our incident action plan. Okay, for the fire district, their hazmat truck remained on the scene and their engine remained on the scene. Their battalion chief left the scene. For Wichita, their special ops chief remained, rescue 2 remained, engine 10 remained. These are all guys that are at the same station as part of this dangerous goods response team. They also called another truck from their station called Tender 10. It's what they call, it's a foam tender, so it can carry water and lay down foam as well. That was part of our incident action plan. In addition, Wichita sent out their rehab bus. Okay, that became important because as it got warmer, we had people working, we could send them to rehab and let them rest and get some fluids. Okay. EMS sent out their ambulance, or they sent them back. This ambulance took a patient in, but then later on they came back and we used them for rehab. Okay. They had to leave again for a critical patient that they had off the scene. So we had to call a neighboring community's ambulance. So we called Mount Hope, the community of Mount Hope. Whoops. We had to call the community of Mount Hope for their ambulance. Now, in addition, we had to call for the trucking company, called a private contractor, because they're responsible for the cleanup. So they called a private contractor for the cleanup. They sent, it's called Eagle Environmental is the name of the company. They sent their spill truck, which is a truck full of equipment, pumps, all kinds of other equipment. And they sent a vac truck, which is a vac truck is like a vacuum truck that can be used to suck the stuff up, the spilled material up off the ground. Okay. So the incident action plan, we formulated based on the resources that we had, the situation we had, and the weather. We formulated the incident action plan. Okay, so what we came up with, I told you earlier, because of the weather, we knew that we were going to have vapor. Okay, we also had a 345 kilovolt power line that ran right over the top of our incident, which posed an issue with the vapor and the possibility of fire that could have caused an issue. So we knew that we had to do vapor suppression. We talked about keeping the vapors down. So that's why we decided to do vapor suppression. We decided to lay down foam to keep the vapors down. Okay. We had to ground and bond the trailer. Okay. That's to keep static electricity down. Okay. We had to remove the electric hazards The electrical hazards we had were the electrical hazards on the truck. Okay, there again to take away any arcing hazard that could have started a fire. And then we did a product transfer. We took the product that was remaining in the damaged tank and moved it over into a good tank. And the trucking company brought one of their trailers out. We transferred it over into their trailer. Okay. This picture, this is a crew laying down. These guys are fire district firefighters. These are from fire district 1. These guys, they're laying down a foam blanket over the product that's been spilled in preparation for grounding and bonding and to just to keep that vapor down. Back behind them, back over in here, was that tender 10 that I talked about. They had all the foam on board, and then our trucks were supplying water for the foam to mix the foam concentrate. Over on this side, this is when the actual transfer was taking place. This is the good trailer over here that they're transferring to. You can see up here, this is the split. This is the damage in the container. They stuck a big long tube down into here, and they're actually pumping foam into that trailer. This firefighter here has a foam nozzle. He's on a safety line. We had some other firefighters on the other side on safety line in case that fire would have lit off into another fire. So after that was done, the trailer was uprighted and taken off the scene. So lessons learned from the incident. You want to stop traffic as soon as possible. That helps to ensure that you don't have any bystanders in the scene. You want to stop product runoff quickly, as quick as possible. Didn't quite get to that as quickly as we could have. There, some of the other units, there was some delay in getting crews there. And remember, we talked about our incident priorities, our life safety, incident stabilization, and property conservation in that order last week. So life safety took priority with the crews that they had on the scene because they had to do a rescue and take care of the patients first. So that's why it took a little bit longer. And so there was some product that did run off before we could get crews in place to take care of the patients. But as soon as you can get crews there, you want to get that product. So something you have to address. This one right here, that call was on a boundary. We've had some issues with neighboring fire districts on who it belongs to. We are working with the neighbors to try to resolve some disputes. That's been an ongoing thing I've been on the fire department for 37 years, and we've had a dispute for 37 years with our neighbors. So that's something that's very sad, but we need to continue to work with them to try to resolve those issues. Unified command is essential. We had a unified command with the Wichita Fire Department, and it worked very well because our incident commander and Fire 186 worked very well together in making those decisions. Good incident action plan is essential, and that includes accounting for the weather, which they did very well. That was good in making those decisions. Then ensuring that the adequate resources can be maintained during critical periods. We had the medic 26 that had to leave the scene right in the middle of a very critical period when they were offloading product. If anything would have gone wrong, that could have been a very bad thing. We had to scramble to find another ambulance to take their place. They had to go on a critical call, somebody that had a heart attack. So that was, and EMS was down to no ambulances left in the county. So we had to scramble to find somebody to take their place. But we have to really ensure that there are adequate resources that can be maintained during critical periods like that. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to do some breakouts. I can take a couple of minutes before we do our breakouts to answer a couple of questions before we do them, if anybody's got a couple of questions. Because this is some information you might be able to use for your breakouts.
Feel free to either raise your hand or unmute yourself, or you can even write your questions in the chat for Brad before we break out.
Okay.
Looks like there's no questions right now.
Nothing. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and drop this off and bring up my other slides. Take me just a second here. Can everybody see that? You see that, Shandy?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'm going to do a breakout session. You guys are going to get a chance to work together to, I guess, work a problem on a scenario. Everybody's going to get to participate. I'm going to go ahead and show you the instructions. So we have two scenarios. I'm going to split the class in half. What I'm going to do, I'm going to split the class in half, and each group is going to get a scenario. And I have some instructions on how to work that scenario. And guys will have 10 minutes, so I'll go ahead and show you the information. So for those of you that were here last week, I want you guys to give an initial, what we call a CAN report, the conditions that you find, the actions the initial actions that you're going to take, and anything that you need. Okay, needs that you have. Okay. And that's when you arrive at the scene. Okay. Then I want you to list the initial actions that you're going to take. want you to show an incident command structure. Give me some sort of an incident command structure. And it doesn't have to be really thorough, but I want to see some sort of an incident command structure. You can just verbalize it. Okay, then take into consideration, some of you may be a little bit far apart, but one of you pick out the local weather in your area that's going on right now. Take that into consideration and take in the available resources. You guys can how can we do this? Use the available resources that you have, your personal protective equipment that you have, and the training that you have. Create an incident action plan, okay? And you have 10 minutes to do it. So Shandy, if you could please split the groups into 2 groups, and I will wait for you to do it. And we'll have group 1 and group 2.
Yes, sir.
Everybody out?
I believe so, sir.
Okay, thank you. Oh, don't be shy. Who wants to present for group 1?
Caleb, would you like to present for the group?
Thank you very much. So we started by discussing safety. You know, in emergencies, in rescue, there's a principle, a dead hero never saves life. That's why we said, the scenario says it's a highly used road. There's a high traffic on the road. We should not be quicker to think of victims before thinking of our own safety. So we suggested that we should use 2 fire trucks to make sure we block the road, no traffic. And then we make the scene demarcation. After demarcating the scene, they say there's a very big leakage of the liquid. I've forgotten what it is because we did not get anything 100%, but we got the scenario. Now, because there's leakage, I'm afraid to see this accident or incident turning from not only being a hazmat, but also a fire scene. By preventing fire from occurring the soonest possible, we need to disconnect the batteries of both vehicles as soon as possible to make sure we don't get fire the quickest. And then after we make sure the scene is very safe for us to operate, it is then we can think of that trapped person into the car. If it's he or she, we need to stabilize our victim as quick as possible and send him or her to hospital. Then one more good element or attractive element is the driver of the truck is missing in the cabinet. Where is he? Has he been ejected? We must check for.
Oh, I think that he was out.
He was out, he was not in. Okay, but
Yes,
as
he was out,
rescuers, yeah, thank you. We did not get it well. We said if he's missing, where is he? It's still a good question for us to eradicate the soonest possible. Has he been ejected? We must maybe check the windscreen. Is it cracked? Maybe somebody has been ejected, is lying somewhere aside. We also need to find out about that as soon as possible. So, as that has been found, a task force shall be assigned to stop the leakage as quick as possible. Meanwhile, we need to know the nature of the liquid which is leaking, check the weather conditions. Maybe if it's 10 degrees, what is the nature of the leaking material? What is its flash point? It's very, very important for us to know all this. We stop it, we make our scene safe, we attend to our victims, meanwhile keeping priority number one, our safety in mind. Now, all this under a well-organized incident command system to avoid the application of tasks and confusion during operations. This is briefly what Group 1 has brought up. Thank you.
All right, good. So what if it was on fire? Then what would you do? There were houses close by. That was good. Nope, lost him. Okay, Group 2. Who wants to present for Group 2?
Yes, good evening. This is Group 2.
Group 2.
Yes, you're ready. So in our scene, we'll start by something we call the scene size up from the dispatch area. So the dispatcher will call first the law enforcement to go and condone the area for the incident, at least to be safer. Call the utility company to go at least and to cut off the supply of the power. We call the backup of a fire engine to come as an hazmat with hazardous material, hazmat team suit. Sorry. Then we'll have a backup of EMTs or an ambulance in case there is for vital signs taking of the hazmat team. Then on reaching the scene, we'll do something. The scene size up still. And scene size up will park upwind, uphill because of the fumes that we'll be seeing from far and from a distance. Then we'll use the rule of thumb. And in that case, after using the rule of thumb, we'll know the scene if it's safer. And in that case, we'll ask even the backup of the towing company for helping us in removing the wreckage vehicle. If the driver is trapped in the vehicle, the hazardous team, because they have the knowledge of extrication, they can use either simplest or complex removal extrication. Then from there, after the patient is removed, the team that will be standby with the charge hose, they will be using either class A type of foam they can use to apply it through raindrops or bank shaft method or sweeping method. Then we have the scene will be on the road. On the road, we'll need to have our law enforcement controlling the traffic. All the responders will be wearing the proper illuminated reflectors, on to at least to alert others. The emergency vehicle will have the emergency lights on, at least to even the other road users will be having the information and the idea what is happening on the road. Then in the fumes, to close the fumes not to be leaking outside to the atmosphere, we'll be having two charge hoses. One, we're having the leader between the charge hose. We'll be advancing towards the valve, at least to shut off the valve if it is able to be shut. But if it is leaking, we can have a good personnel who is good in repairing them. We can repair at least for the fumes not to be leaking towards the atmosphere. Then in that case, after the removal, we'll have a decontamination process. We'll have the cold, because we have the hot, warm, and cold. The ambulance will be parked at the cold zone, the fire engine at the warm zone, and the hazmat team will be at the hot zone. That will be our plan for the scenario. Thank you.
Right.
Yeah, and as well, if I may add, the scenarios showed that there was going to be a crowd around the scene. So law enforcement will help us keep them at a distance so that the firefighters and the EMTs can be able to do their work with ease and safety.
Yes, and in addition to that, we can locate or we can look for one of the bystanders who is causing more trouble. We'll ask him to help us in another duty, at least to show other bystanders there he is helping or she is helping out with the responders. Yes, thank you.
Right. Plus, you want to keep the bystanders out in case it blows up or one of those guys tosses a cigarette in there and sets those vapors off, right?
So
Yeah, that's
in the yes. And in an additional thing is about the weather. The weather condition will check if it is hot and sunny. We will use application of the foam using the raindrops or sweeping method. But if the weather is rainy, we can create a trench so that the fumes, if we have the leakage, we have it in a fluid form. If it's an LPG, because in LPG when it is compressed, is always can change from gaseous state to a liquid state. So in case if you're having any leakages of any liquid substance, we can go straight to the trenches. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for participating. I would urge everybody to continue to learn more about this. Like I say, this is 2 hours worth. And there's a class in Colorado in the US that's a week long on trucks and trailers. Plus, then you can learn a lot more by going to hazardous materials class. So to it. So if everybody would like to stay over for tea time, that'd be great. I am not the host that Jose is, but I'd love for you guys to stay in here and we can talk and enjoy tea time now. So thank you so much for taking part today.
Thank you so much, Brad, and thank you all for participating in today's training. We will be posting the recording online soon for future reference. We would ask that you complete our online evaluations so that we can continue to improve our trainings. Next week training will be with Brad, but not this Brad, and it will be on vehicle fires. You will be able to use the same link to log into the training next week if you're able to attend. Please invite other firefighters to register and attend our trainings. Thank you, and remember, a better fire service starts with you.